Management Today, Chapter 1. The study of resource management is about how individuals and families decide, plan, and act to fulfill needs and accomplish goals in an increasingly complex society. The topics for this chapter are: what is family resource management, life management for individuals and families. We'll also talk about what lies ahead. In the beginning of each chapter in the textbook, the author provides a variety of fun facts to know and tell about life in general, to put things into perspective, as well as to lay the foundation for what the textbook chapter is going to provide in terms of information. The first fun fact the author provides has to do with how many dates a person goes on before getting married. The average person goes on about 100 dates before they get married. Some of those dates are going to be during the time when a person is engaged. The second bullet is the average length of time for a shower is 10 minutes and 24 seconds. These two bullets really address the topic of resource management with respect to time, how time is spent. Time is a very valuable resource to individuals, and how you spend your time is going to influence the quality of your life. With respect to the first bullet, the average person goes on 100 dates before getting married. That's an investment of time for a very important decision, and that's who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So that is time well worth spending. The second bullet about showering, was going to vary from person to person, but these are day-to-day activities that we have to engage in: showering, brushing our teeth, getting dressed. All of that expends time, and time, again, is very, very valuable. The last bullet, the average age at first marriage in the U.S. is 28 for men and 26 for women. Men and women are taking longer to make a decision about getting married, and we'll discuss why in the slides ahead. So what is family resource management? The study of family resource management is about how individuals and families decide, plan, and act to fulfill their needs and accomplish their goals in an increasingly complex society. It's also about working together in families, and it's also about collective decision making. So questions people ask about how life is managed. We ask questions like, where does the time go? What should I be doing with my life? How can I find a fulfilling career? Where do I fit in? How can I succeed? Should I go to graduate school? Where will I live? These are all a variety of questions people ask themselves with respect to how they manage their life. Throughout this chapter and throughout this course, I'm going to be providing you with some definitions. I can read the definitions to you. I'll do that for some of them. Some of them I won't. I'll just read the most important definitions. But what these definitions do is they provide the foundation for what you're going to be looking at ahead. In order for you to understand some of the concepts that the textbook talks about, you have to have some definitions of certain words. And so I'm going to pepper throughout this presentation definitions on a variety of slides so that you get that information ahead of time and are able to better understand what the author is talking about in the textbook. So choice, we know what the word choice means. We know that just from living. It's the act of selecting among alternatives. Risks, the possibility of perception of harm, suffering, danger, or loss. Happiness, the degree with which one judges the overall quality of life. Problems are questions or dilemmas or situations that require solving. And then needs and wants, they're not the same thing. Needs are what we must have to survive or sustain life. Wants are the things that we desire. So two very different things, and we need to distinguish between the two of them. Risk management. This is a slide about risk management. We talked about the definition of risk in the previous slide. And there are all sorts of companies and organizations that have risk management offices. That's how important risk management is. And in the same way that Risk management is important to an organization. Is also going to be important in your life. And the way we manage risk is we assess the risk, we evaluate the risk, we manage the risk, we try to minimize the harm that's going to be caused to people, and then we measure the outcome of what occurred, and we determine whether or not it was worth the risk to be able to engage in a particular activity. That example on the right-hand side, the Vancouver 2010 Olympics, going to the Olympics is a big risk. It involves a lot of money, and you don't necessarily get to see all of the events that you would like to see because they can be expensive. There are a certain number of tickets available. You might not get to be able to see everything. However, you need to weigh whether or not that's something you want to engage in an activity. There's a risk involved, a risk in terms of money and time, emotion, and not being able to see everything you want to be able to see. If you're bringing other family members, will everybody be able to get to see the same event or not? But going to the Olympics is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Going to the Super Bowl is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So many people take that risk. They decide, I'm going to go to the Olympics, I'm going to try and see as many events as I possibly can, and then at the end they determine whether or not it was worth it to them. So what is this course about? This course is about thinking and planning. It's about making decisions and choices as an individual and as a member of a family or group. It's about planning that leads to automatic decisions and actions. Planning also leads to more complicated life choices like where to live, whom to marry, and if and when to have children. When you choose, you are accountable for the resources used and the path selected. No decision is made in total isolation. So my question would be, is this all really necessary? So many of you are saying to yourself, I already live in a family. I already have experienced much of this already. So you are probably wondering, do I really need this? One of the wonderful things about this class and taking this course is because it helps us to deconstruct a lot of the very common things we do in life and understand them much better. And because we understand them much better and because we're looking at them from a different perspective, we can make our decisions a lot more better. Okay, so in a nutshell, this course is about critically thinking about yourself, your family, your future. This course helps you to understand your values, your attitudes, your goals, and your motivations within an environment of limited resource. This course will also help you make good decisions and solve problems through planning, implementing, and evaluating. Actions associated with communication, managing human needs, and managing time will help you in your career and family while reducing your stress and fatigue. So let's talk a little bit about how things have changed to family life and household functioning. So most of you are probably in your 20s and don't remember the 1950s, but your parents certainly did, or your grandparents. So consider what families and households were like in the 1950s and compare them to what things are like today. Today, more women are working outside the home than ever before. Many women did not work outside the home in the 1950s. 25% of households have a mother, a father, and a children living at home. That's 25%. Back in the 1950s, close to 75, 100% of households had a father, a mother, and children living at home. 40% of babies are born outside of marriage. Back in the 1950s, that was very much discouraged, and it was very much looked down upon for a woman to have a child out of wedlock. But today, 40% of babies are born outside of marriage. And the fastest group of unwed mothers is ages 25 to 29. About half these women are living with boyfriends and eventually will marry. Again, back in the 1950s, living with a person of the opposite sex was not something that was very, very common. It was looked down upon. There are over 105 million households, 14 million more than existed a decade ago. And what's interesting that the textbook talks about, it says that the nation's stock is geared to traditional families. So in other words, a lot of the programming that we see, a lot of the resources that are provided by the government are geared toward the traditional family, yet 75% of households do not look like that. So there are changes in the way people are living, changes in lifestyle acceptance, changes to what we think about single parenthood, changes to what we think about the definition of a family. And some other societies, some other countries, respect families just the way that we do. In Canada, you'll see that Canadian flag at the top right-hand side. That's there to remind me to tell you that in Canada, they have a holiday that's called the Family Day holiday, and it's the second Monday in February. So they tend to have a lot of emphasis on what they consider family values, and we'll learn in this textbook and in the conversations that we'll be having that the definition of a family has changed over time, as illustrated in these pictures. You see at the top left-hand side and in the center and all around a variety of traditional families. We have very large families. Some people consider just the nuclear family, a mother, a father, and a child. There are other people that consider their grandparents and their relatives parts of their families. There are mixed race families. There are blended families. There are families with multiple stepfathers or stepmothers. There are same-sex families. So there are a whole variety of different types of families. If you just did a Google search for the word family and looked for images, you would see a whole variety of different pictures. These, I think, are some examples of the ones that I received just from a Google search. Over here, we've got some famous first families. We've got the Obamas, the Bushes, the Nixons, the Carters, the Reagans, the Clintons. So we call them the first family. It's because in our society, we very, very much appreciate the concept of a family. In other societies as well, the family is really, really important. You can see here, this is familiar to you, this is the royal family, Prince William and Kate Middleton, who were married not too long ago, and now they have their first child, which is making a lot of news. That's because in British society, the royal family is very, very important. So now let's move on to talking back again about how things have changed since the 1950s. That picture on the top left-hand side is a production still from the I Love Lucy set. If you'll notice in the video set, you'll see that the censors at the time did not allow Ricky and Lucy Ricardo to sleep in the same bed. That was not allowed back in the 1950s. They had to sleep in twin beds because the society just did not tolerate seeing a man and a woman in the same bed together in a TV show. If you fast forward to today and you think of a program like Sex and the City, which was a series that ran from 1998 to 2004, you see there that it's quite common now to see a man and a woman sleeping in the same bed together during primetime television when even children might be watching. This is a video clip from the I Love Lucy series, and I'm going to try and play it. This will be the last thing we see for this lesson, and then I'll explain why I brought it up to you after we see the clip. Okay, so what's interesting about this is you can see again the twin beds in the background, but what I think is really kind of interesting about this particular video is if you listen to what Lucy was saying, she was essentially accusing Ricky of having an affair with another woman, and she was angry with him about it. And so back in the 1950s, you could talk about a man, having an affair with another woman, because obviously Lucy was doing that because she was angry. But you could not have a man and a woman, a married man and a woman, be seen together in the same bed. One last thing I do want to say, since we're talking on that subject, is just some more pictures about the evolution of the changing societal tolerance for seeing a man and a woman together in a bed. You'll see at the top left-hand side, that may be that picture there is from another show in the 1950s. It was called the Dick Van Dyke Show. You can see there they're also in twin beds. Fast forward a little bit to the 1970s. That's an episode from Bewitched. You can see there they have a single bed. Fast forward again to a movie that was really quite racy at the time. This is Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft. Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft. And that was a movie that was called The Graduate. It was an American comedy drama directed by Mike Nichols. And the screenplay was about a young university graduate with no well-defined aim in life who is seduced by an older woman, Mrs. Robinson, who was Anne Bancroft, and then proceeds to fall in love with Anne Bancroft's daughter, Elaine. And so that was really quite scandalous at the time. If you look at movies today, television programs today, that sort of situation we see quite commonly in the movies and in television. And so that sort of illustrates how things have changed dramatically over the years. I think what we'll do is we'll end here today. Our next lesson will be about population shifts and how they affect management patterns.